Okay, ladies and gentlemen, excited with this one. Moreira's Magic own Selby the Steer, two-time winner of AFL Fantasy. That was a long time ago now. He's riding the coattails, if I'm honest, but he's going big in fantasy land at the moment. And excitingly, Selbs, you're building your own platforms. I can't keep up with what you're doing, and I've been impressed from afar. Today, we're talking about Slyder, your new draft platform. You excited?
Oh, excited, nervous. Been a big little period, as you said. Yeah, Moreira's Magic's been my little baby for, well, as you said, since 2017. So we're getting up to 7-8 years of just producing content for that.
Yeah.
But we've moved, and don't talk about riding on the coattails. So I reckon coincided with you winning a premiership, you're still it's still got the medal underneath your neck now.
I only speak about coattails because I know what it's like to ride them, mate. You can ride them as long as you like.
But we're working more in the platform space rather than giving content for existing games. We're trying through Magic Sports, which isn't just me and Moreira's Magic. We've got a good team of quality people behind it. Smarter than me, a lot smarter than us.
Than you and smart by you.
Where we're trying to bring a few different products to the marketplace and think of other ways people can play their fantasy footy. So, yeah, Slyder being pretty well the showpiece product of that, and it's a brand new draft platform ready for 2025 drafting.
Okay. The reason I asked it off the top, are you excited? Because I'm excited with this because, as you know, although I did spend some time playing AFL, I probably spent more time and effort being a fantasy head. My greatest claim to fame came second in a round one year. I was back-to-back with you texting. One of the great moments of my life. Would have been nice to win it. But I've played across every platform. I've played in drafts. I've played in just regular fantasy. I've gone super coach. I've gone AFL fantasy with the AFL website. I've done pretty much everything. So to hear you're building your own draft platform, I need to know a little bit more about it because I'm in about 7 or 8 leagues, and I reckon a couple of them might be interested in this one.
No, I've seen you in leagues. It's funny. More back to the classic space. You reckon you came second overall. There was someone in the top 10. I think Steen was his name.
Yeah.
And his profile picture was your mug. So I'd look at your mug each week when I was sitting there looking at the top 10. But, yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm obviously a fantasy fan like yourself for a lot of years. And while we all love the chase for that single prize in classic, drafts where it's at in terms of connecting people. And that's what Magic Sports, our big aim is kind of get people together. We've got group threads chatting, which we wouldn't chat to our mates if it wasn't for this. And then it sort of sprawls onto other things and it's hard enough to get out of the house at the best of times these days. But, we've got our draft night tonight.
Yes. Get
there and do that. So with Slyder, we've tried to make a very accessible way where people can play draft. It's completely free to do a whole lot of new customization and features, which obviously we've taken a few things from overseas who do it the best. Their fantasy sports is probably 10 years ahead of ours, but we've made a platform where we think it's higher functional and highly accessible for people to jump on with their mates and connect their mates together and play some fantasy footy and fantasy draft.
Right. So is this something that's been missing a little bit in Australia, so that other countries are 10 years ahead? Like, what is Slyder? But like, why are you doing it? Is there a bit of a gap for people like me?
Yeah, there was. So what is Slyder? So it's more than just the draft. We like to say it's a multi-layered draft platform where you can bring your mates across and play draft. We'll get into what some of those features are and what's involved there. But we also offer some tools and advice and content for draft coaches. So even if you're still drafting elsewhere, I know a lot of people still use the old-fashioned pen and paper and stick-it notes on the wall to hold their draft.
Yes.
There's still use on Slyder, and then we're also running a separate competition called Survive, which I'm really excited to do. But what's different, there's certain things which had limitations in the past in fantasy draft platforms. So little things like if you were to come across and set up your league, and we've seen in recent years with the AFL, all the buy rounds and the early buy rounds and round zero and all these things, which sort of, I know our commissioner, he spends his whole time after manually fixing teams and telling people don't set this play, he's got to buy and do all this. Nightmare.
Mate, it was, especially last year, it was an absolute nightmare.
So where a lot of it's set up in the settings and the customization, that say if you don't want to play these buy rounds, you don't have to play them. But obviously now I think there's 7 buy rounds for the 24 weeks. So you can't, if you skip it there, you're missing most of the season. So we've got it that if you want to take the opening round score from a player who has a buy in round 3, you can do that. So when you're drafting at the end of Feb, you don't have to discount this player just because he's playing 23 or 22 games, sorry, because he's missing in a bye round, you get that score, which is real life AFL in round 0. You can have that score if you want your league to have that score. You can allocate averages. You can choose, we only want 14 of our 18-person squad to count those bye weeks to make it a bit fair for coaches who have different leagues. So the settings around the bye rounds, both early round and mid-round, are big. Again, coming from my own league where it's much about who comes last, who has to wear this camo suit to our end-of-year function, that it is the person who wins who gets the coveted Red Wigs cap. But you obviously know stories of the McDonald's challenge where you have to eat your 24 burgers within 24 hours. And every burger you eat, you get an hour off. Or some leagues do that they got to go to Northbridge and busk, and they can only leave when they make $20.
Mate, I saw one the other day. Had to sit in a bar and they had different allocations for like shots and beers and stuff. It's like, it's not a punishment. I would have rather lose it. You just sit in the bar and drink beers and watch sport.
Comedy, you'd be right there. But so it's as much about the last place as first place. So we've also got a setting that if you want to, rather than just being the last on the ladder when the finals start, well, how about we put a bit more at stake here, and we've got a last spot playoff. So you can pick a final series where it's a bit reversed. And if you win your final, you're out, and it's down to then the bottom two, the grand final, the last week to follow along too. So that's obviously all built in to the platform there. In terms of drafting, and I know myself, we've got a group of mates, we turn our transactions off because we've got some people who love it like me, and then there's some people who wouldn't really know anyone outside of the top 5 players, and for them to get up there and put their team. So we've got an option to do a best ball scoring system where you do the draft, which is the highlight of the year. You get around with your mates, take it in turns to pick your picks, select your league to be best ball, and then each week you get each team gets their optimal lineup, so you don't have to worry about setting your team and making it a little bit more of a less conducive way and to play fantasy footy.
So that's automated. Lineups are set. You do your draft, which is the best part.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest. Draft leagues, the best night is draft night, and then it gets a little bit tedious, especially if you're going no good to actually have to set your teams.
Yeah, keep setting them.
So to listen to what you have to say. These are my takeaways for Slyder. It's free, highly customizable with leagues and settings. One thing you didn't talk about though is what I think is a big benefit. It's live and available right now. Like it's good to go.
And there's a lot of movement in the space, and the AFL are doing a full rebuild of theirs, which is looking really good, which is great for the whole fantasy league in general. As I said, we're promoting that because we want people to, the more drafters, the better, because as I said, that's what connects people. And if they can use our site to help them practice for their draft, it's great. But we launched ours firstly for the women's season back in September. So we've had a full season knowing that the things transact. There's so many little different intricacies, particularly around this customizable settings to know it works. So yeah, we're open for business. And if you want to draft early before all the news comes out and the content and really go purely test your knowledge, or if you've got a date which works, or if you just want to practice mock drafting, yeah, we're up and available as we speak now. Because
you've got ADPs in there, so average draft position, which again, I'm a bit of a nuffy and I like looking at that, like what's actually happening. Where's Bailey Smith slotting into things? He's highly talked about. Is Clayton Oliver getting taken earlier than we think?
Yeah.
Who's going number 1? How high do we have the all this sort of stuff?
Yeah, there's been to date over 2,000 mock draft running in our mock draft system. I'm sure we'll talk about in a second. So that data which we've got about where's the earliest someone's taken a Clayton Oliver and when's the latest. If you come to your draft, you can see this data and I've got a steal. No one's in the whole world has drafted Clayton Oliver later than I imagine get him. My mates mustn't be seeing that picture with him with his shirt off. So that's big. But then obviously more in terms of that's for the more less hardcore, the ones like the best ball. But we've also got things in there for people who really take their fantasy seriously to take it to the next level. So whether it's a keeper league, which is obviously been around for a while now in Australia, where you're not just drafting for now, you keep a certain amount of those players for future years. So
Absolutely.
You obviously not just think about winning now, you have to think about future.
It's like building your own franchise, really.
Yeah, and the whole management around that. But we've added, which you haven't been able to do so to date, but you can also now trade draft picks, just like a real-life AFL team can do. So if I was out of contention, I could say to you, I'll trade you Marcus Bontempelli, and you can give me Will Ashcroft, and I'll give you my second round pick while we're there. And then so next year you're loaded with a a better second round pick. So pre-draft, you can trade draft picks like in the AFL. If you don't want your pick 5, you might trade that for pick 15 and 24.
That's a brilliant functionality because the leagues I've been in and still in, it requires the league manager and they're running spreadsheets. They got notepads with who's traded what picks.
Our whole hope is to take the weight and hand. Our poor old commissioner, it's a full-time job. So we're trying to take the weight off that commissioner while also giving them the powers to edit the teams, edit scores if need be. But hopefully you won't have to with all the future-proof we've put in there. So yeah, trading draft picks is one which we're really excited to roll out into 2025 fantasy drafts.
I think it's best to ask and get some details around how we pull our league across if we want to a little bit later. I think let's go through and see what it is, and if people are actually I like the sound of that.
While you're on the keepers, if you're an existing keeper league, I know there's leagues been there for 15 years, so you've got your keepers. You don't have to start fresh. There's a way where you can load in your keepers from your prior existing league, and then you'll go to the draft, and they've already been allocated to your team. Allocate the draft picks, whatever that might be there. But
that's another nightmare for commissioners.
When functionality doesn't exist, another little one there for commissioners.
Yeah.
So with that commissioner, with the live draft, obviously you put in your time and date when you want to draft, and lots of people like to draft the weekend before the opening round or weeks leading up to opening round. But so you put your date in there. But if you decide, we want to start early, or if you're at someone's house and everyone's ready and you can go, or if someone's running late, you've got the ability to press a button and start the draft whenever you want.
Yep.
You can also pause the live draft, so whether there's a pizza delivery mid-draft, if you want a little breather, because sometimes it can get a bit long, those drafts. So you have a little breather, have a drink, and then go back and press go, which
That's
again,
good.
Haven't been able to do so far in Australia. And then edit picks in the case that someone, I know there was a year there when Angus Brayshaw was last year when he retired at the start of the year.
Yes.
And based off averages, he was like the 5th highest averaging defender. And there's always someone in the group who either by mistake or
you've done
by
the draft.
auto draft.
Or you've done the draft too early. Yeah.
And it stings you up. So mid-draft, if there's something which does compromise your league, you're able to go in there and press undo, and then they can redo their pick.
That's interesting.
And then even cancel draft. If someone didn't rock up or the internet's no good, you can press cancel draft, and then it will allocate it for a future time you want. So we're trying to give the power to again, these are all learnings from me where we've been in these same situations.
That's why I'm sitting here laughing. Like every time you say one of these, like some idiot's forgotten the drafts on, someone's pulled the trigger on Brayshaw. Like these are all things that literally happen. You're not putting functionality in there that you're just making it up. Like these things happen daily.
And then the auto draft, because that's part of. If you miss your time, you might get an Angus Brayshaw. But again, a new thing we've put in there is you can pick. If you do time out and you get auto-drafted a player, you can pick how you want to get given. Do you want to get the player with the highest average, which would have been an Angus Brayshaw? Do you just want to be given the guy with the lowest ADP, so you know at least you're not going to get an absolute disaster? Or you can preset your queue pre-drafts. If you're not going to be at the draft, you can preset your queue. Say, if I auto-draft, make sure it's based off my queue, and that will happen that way as well.
Okay, good. So that's the draft itself and some of the details there. What about if you got anything else to add with draft? I mean, you've covered.
There's just that's most the new things. Obviously, everything else everyone knows and loves about drafts, but the draft board, which I mentioned, the stick-it notes, which people still like doing the old school nature of it, and obviously big overseas with Sleeper and ESPN, they've essentially emulated that while you're drafting. You can see like these draft board or the tiles popping up, colour on position. So we've got that built in. Which looks really good. Our designer Alex has done an awesome job there, and it's always fun watching how it goes. You'll see where the ruck run happens, and a few of these certain colours happen in a row. So that's a cool new feature in there.
Do you want to have a little look? We've got the website in front of us right now, which is what, by the way? Like, what's your website?
It's slyder.team is the domain. SLYDER. The idea being like you slide down the draft order, like draft slider. But then also, I'm sneaking a pick off you. It's a bit like I'm a bit sly, so it's
a little slippery. So
it's a cleverish name, but then again, no one can find the domain. So a bit like, as you can tell with Moreira's magic, I'm not the best at creating business names.
Well, that's all right. Slyder.team. You should figure it out. SLYDER.team is how you go and get amongst this stuff. All right, so what if you're not in a draft league, or alternatively you are doing a draft league somewhere else and some of this stuff's interested? Like, how do you get across?
Yeah, so as mentioned, we're trying to make it not a one-stop shop, but a full service, everything you might want in draft, whether it's to host your league there, but even if you're hosting your league elsewhere, that there's still reason for you to come across to Slyder. So a big reason for that is tools and mock draft lobby, where you can go either against general public and other coaches and practice your drafting skills against those at any time during the day.
Great.
A solo draft, if you just don't wait for other people to make their selections, you can go against our educated computers.
Is that right? You got bots in there?
Again, it's not me, it's not my... I said, I'm not the smart one. I've got the old Wonkster puts together something where you'll be drafting against a smart computer to sort of see where your draft is going.
I like that.
On the back of that, obviously, there's the data which gets fed through, which we've mentioned the draft report to know how those ADPs are changing. Like a Riley Sanders might have been ADP 100 2 weeks ago, but in recent weeks, he's getting good match sim. You can see his ADP coming up. Where I'm really excited and what's hopefully going to bring more people to the draft space is this Survivor comp, which we're launching in 2025.
Right.
So
what's that?
It's a single entry draft comp where you can enter for free and enter the draft against the rest of the world. We say the world, a bit like the American basketballers, kings of the world.
The universe.
To find out who the best drafter is in Australia. I know you walk around pretty happy in your draft league, but you're only beating your 12 mates.
I'm not beating them, actually.
Well, the winner is they think they're the best drafters. They're only beating the one. So what we're doing is that you'll nominate for Slyder Survivor and pick a time which suits you. At that time, you'll again be thrown in a draft room with a group of random coaches, and you'll just do a regular draft.
Yep.
Draft your team, be in that same league. So the idea is there'll be 12-team leagues. You'll play head-to-head matchups against everyone. So after 11 weeks, you've played everyone once.
Yep.
And after 11 weeks, we're then going to get the top 4 or 6, depending on how many people end up jumping on Survivor, will be thrown into the pool for an overall rank for the rest of the season for the overall prize. So a bit like Classic, where you're going cheating for your team against an overall prize.
Yep.
But teams are going to be so much more unique because you've drafted them. Yes, there's going to be some commonality because they're drafted in different draft pools. And if we had done this last year, I dare say 80% of the top 100 would have drafted Tristan Cherry with their third-round pick and end up being the second best player. But
that's how draft goes.
Your draft team is going to be unique, and you're going to go in there and try to take on the rest of Australia with your draft team.
Great. I'm excited about this one. So to summarise, you enter Survivor, you get put in a league with 12 or 11 other coaches. Then you go head-to-head.
Head-to-head for the first 11
rounds, and that is a best ball...
Yeah, so we've also known that we've said a few times, the best thing about draft is the actual draft time, draft day, whether you're with your mates or even, like I've done a few mock drafts, you get the thrill just, is this guy going to drop to me? The draft's the fun part.
Yes.
We also know that people, there's obviously time poor and they've got their own home leagues, and as I said, whether it's on the AFL platform or wherever they're doing it. So we don't want to have an extra burden or create more time for these coaches. So it's going to be set up under a best ball scenario where there'll be no transactions, no trades all year. You just draft your team, then each week you'll be given your optimal lineup. So say if you've got 18 on field and a squad of 30, each week you'll be given your top 6 defenders, top 8 mids, top ruck. So it's low maintenance during the year, but still a good different way to play and get involved in fantasy. And mention if you haven't got a league, so there's people out there who want to play draft but haven't got a league to join, this is a great way to introduce yourself to draft because you just join as a sole entrant.
Yeah, that's elite. And now I know it's early in the season, but is there maybe behind the scenes working on a little prize for the best drafter?
Yeah, so the prize is a guaranteed $1,000 for the winner.
So and then out of your pocket?
Pending registrations and how many jump on, we're hoping that we might even be able to see what happens there. So, or if someone wants to come on board as a sponsor.
Okay. Shout out to the sponsors out there. If you want to get involved with Survivor, you can contact Selby directly. Otherwise, we'll be coming off his Amex at the end of the year. So, mate, that actually sounds brilliant. I told you before we jumped on, I do exactly that with an NFL league out of America. I don't know anyone really in America, so I play against randoms in best ball leagues, and it's the most enjoyable because look, as much as you've made a living out of transactions and doing what you do during the week, sometimes I don't have time for it. And I think there'd be a lot of people like me that it gets a little bit too much if you're across 7 different leagues and you're trying to pull people in and out. This is a good sort of mid-range, midpoint to
Yeah,
enter
low
into it.
consuming way to still
Yeah.
be involved in fantasy, still get that enjoyment and distraction from everyday life, but not being too consuming in itself, which I know can certainly happen in some fantasy leagues. So yes, Slyder Survivor, free to register, jump on slider.team, click on Survivor, and as I said, once we get the numbers, we'll then allocate you in those different time positions, and very excited to launch that this year.
Is there any, I know you touched on it briefly, but is there sort of notes on players or articles getting fed through the Slyder platform?
Yep, there's free articles at the moment for all 18 clubs, so team previews, again, as a resource for people to use wherever they're playing fantasy. And then for coaches who opt to Magic Up, which is a $15 payment integrated in the platform, that then unlocks a few other features in the platform. So you'll get priority access to this Survivor comp. Obviously, we need leagues of 12, and it's not, the retros aren't always going to be divisible by 12. So if you're at Magic Up, you'll be guaranteed entry into the Survivor comp. You get access to this draft report I mentioned before with all that ADP data feeding through. And then there's weekly waiver wire articles, which will be there in transaction trends for those who Magic Up. But there's also, as mentioned, there's a lot of free content and tools there just for the everyday drafter like yourself.
This is great news, I think, in its entirety. My wife's probably not going to be overly happy with it because it sounds very good. And what I do, and at the very same time don't need in my life, is a good fantasy platform that's going to enable me to play more leagues. And
best
this is what
ball,
this
mate. Tell her best ball.
This is what it is.
Best
it's bloody
ball is
brilliant. So, okay, so that's Slyder. What have we missed? We missed anything there? We've gone through in draft settings, post-draft.
Yeah, post-draft's obviously everything you expect, the league matchups, the transactions. We're, again, trying to do a few different things with the transactions where the way waiver wire works or restricted free agents. If you try to put a bid in for a player, you obviously have to put in someone who you're going to drop if you were to get them, and often that's your worst player. And then you'll put a bid in for a second player who you also want, and then the second player you want to get out.
Yep.
Sometimes if you miss the first player but get the second player, you're then losing your second worst player and you're stuck with your worst. So we've got it that you can not only rank who you want to get in each time you do your RFA, you can also rank who you want to drop.
Is that right?
On the flip side, though, there's some times where you might want to pick up say Toby Conway from Geelong gets a gig, so you want to pick up a ruck with the RFA, so you'll drop your second grade ruck. But if you don't get Toby Conway, you're going to need your ruck. So you can also press link on the right-hand side and you can link those RFA transactions together.
That's very good.
So that's another new little thing we've added in. So yeah, everything else you know and like about a regular fantasy league with the team summaries come up a treat with the jumper numbers on the back of the Guernseys. Obviously, we haven't got the license to use the player photos, but the way Alex has done it, it's looking like a really, he's put it together really well. So I hope everyone can enjoy that regular season there. And in terms of what's to come, like we're very much an evolving platform. While I said we did launch in the AFLW season, we've added a whole lot more since then, and we hope to continue to add to this platform and make it as good as it can be for the drafters out there. So currently through the review process, which is a bit harder than I thought, to be honest with you, for an app to get produced. So there'll be, hopefully, come draft season, an app which you can draft on. But if not, the mobile view is very mobile friendly to...
Okay.
Obviously, I recommend people use the desktop to do the draft because that's where you can see all these different stats while you're drafting. But the mobile view is certainly made for fit.
I love the waiver wire functionality because my waiver wire on a Tuesday usually looks about 12 deep because I've tried to, exactly what you're talking about. You've got 5 different guys you want out before for the next. So I like that. Okay, so future, maybe or hopefully an app before the season starts. Draft stuff works better on a desktop anyway.
Especially the live draft, but it's more just if you're Xavier Ellis and you're sitting on the toilet, you just want to pick up your phone, rather than going Safari and trying to work out how you type in Slyder and spell that, little over errors, you can just one click of the button. So
you're going to be a busy man, mate. You've got this piece of software that you're building. You got others, like you said, the women's side of things. Are you going to have time to be playing?
Yeah, we've got our home league across, so that adds a bit more extra pressure to it. So assure you that I'll be trying to make it as good as it can be in that experience. But as I said, this Slyder part in the Magic Sports side, which is the platform side, like obviously I'm the face of it, but there's people a lot smarter than me behind the scenes, whether it's in the data scientist, the developer. I'm not a coder, I'm not a developer. We've got a team there doing that. So I take comfort knowing that they're delivering this, and hopefully the people will appreciate all the hard work everyone's putting in, because there's certainly people behind me who are doing a hell of a lot of work, and proud of what it's produced and how it's come out.
Brilliant, mate. So if you're sitting here watching this, just some probably prompts to either enter leagues or find out more. So Slyder.team, SLYDER.team will get you access. You can sign up. You can bring your league across. Further questions, I'm assuming?
Yeah, send them through. There's an FAQ on the website. I might chuck up a few of these little things on the website too. There's detailed instructions on there, articles, but you'll see on the homepage the email address, which you can always hit, and that is one thing I do too. That's what I can do, reply to emails. So you'll be getting directly to me if there's any issues. We're more than happy to try to solve them, because I know how important drafts can be.
Yeah, that is exciting, mate. Brilliant stuff. I'm excited. Our league will be coming across, because without naming names, we've had some issues over the last few years with different things. I know there's been a lot of changes in the draft platform space, and I'm excited to see what this looks like, mate. Well done. Congratulations. And do you have any spots in any of your draft leagues? Because I'm personally addicted.
Don't tell your wife, but we might fire up a little best ball version of it.
I'm addicted. Well done, Selby.
Good on you, Schoey.